Britain's natural beauty is often overlooked. So let's take a walk on the wild side, over our green and pleasant land. Along our rugged coastline. And around the 6,000 islands that make up the British Isles. Over one dramatic year, we'll follow the extraordinary wildlife on our doorstep. From the familiar to the surprising. We share this truly special part of the planet with millions of animals. This place we're lucky enough to call home is a natural wonder. Britain's water worlds. From beautiful Scottish lochs and golden reed beds to southern swamps and the ponds in our back gardens. These wetlands are some of our richest places for wildlife. Home to our biggest birds, our cleverest spiders, our best swimmers, and our finest formation flyers. These are wild corners we rarely explore, out-of-reach places, hidden havens, where mysterious creatures lurk in the shadows. And if we delve a little deeper, they hold many secrets waiting to be discovered. In a quiet corner of Devon, a huge network of ponds. A wetland paradise brimming with wildlife. Just 4 years ago, these large pools didn't even exist. But this mysterious water world hasn't been created by man. It's been engineered by an animal absent from our waterways for centuries. The beaver. In fact, this is home to a family of 8 beavers, a colony made up of parents and their young, all less than 2 years old. These industrious creatures are the size of a large dog. They've blocked a small stream by building 6 dams, several meters long and up to 2 meters high. In the process, they've created a series of deep pools, a sanctuary where the beavers can live and feed in safety. This mum is well adapted for life in the water. Her webbed hind feet and paddle-like tail make her a powerful swimmer. It's a tail with many uses. A slap on the surface warns of danger to the rest of the colony. Normally associated with North America, these European cousins were hunted to extinction in Britain over 400 years ago for their meat and fur. But now, small, reintroduced populations are spreading through our waterways once again. They have a highly specialized double-layered coat, soft, short fur for warmth, and a longer waterproof layer. Looking after it takes time and effort. They spend hours grooming. Glands at the base of the tail produce a water-repellent oil. Their hand-like front paws smother it over their body. A great excuse for a good old scratch. Beaver life might seem pretty relaxed, but they're far from lazy. They spend most of their time eating the plants and trees that make up their vegetarian diet, and collecting branches to maintain their watery home. As night approaches, these mainly nocturnal rodents really get to work. The sound of running water alerts this male to a leak. A large breach and the protective moat could disappear. So repair work starts immediately. First, he fills the gap with mud. Then he goes in search of something more substantial. Beavers are nature's lumberjacks, expert tree fellers. Their razor-sharp teeth mean they can fell a 2-meter tree in just 5 minutes. It doesn't take long to fix the leak and preserve the colony's safety. It's a huge effort to maintain this watery home. And every animal that lives here depends on the beaver's hard work. But life isn't always so harmonious in our wetlands. Even in these seemingly safe havens, danger is never far away. Our British wetlands are the realm of a cold-blooded killer. Rarely seen, a silent assassin patrols a lake in Kent, searching for her next meal. Up to 2 meters long, grass snakes are Britain's largest reptile. And despite their misleading name, their hunting ground is the water. Distinguished by an olive-green body and black bars along the flanks, this female grass snake glides effortlessly through the water. She's non-venomous, relying on strong jaws to grab and swallow her prey. Her forked tongue smells in stereo, helping her to pinpoint her food. Amphibians are top of her hit list, making up 80% of her diet. The tadpole of a great crested newt floats just below the surface. For the moment, it's safe, but to come up for air now could be fatal. Using her excellent eyesight, the grass snake locks onto her target. Luckily, the tadpole has no need to surface. Its headdress of feathery gills allows it to breathe underwater. It dives out of sight. Time to move on. The snake's sinuous contractions propel her through the water. Few creatures are safe from this swamp monster. She'll also eat fish, small mammals, and even birds. Which is why some go to extraordinary lengths to avoid her. Deep in our British reed beds, there's a secretive bird that's found the ultimate hiding place. The reed warbler. It seldom leaves this marshy jungle, so the only way to catch sight of one is to wade into their world. Britain's reed warblers have staged a remarkable revival. We now have 80% more birds than we did 50 years ago. Understanding their success could help other animals that aren't doing so well. It's a puzzle Dr. David Leach is trying to crack. By studying the reed warblers in these reed-fringed pools in Norfolk. The nest is among the most amazing constructions built by any bird. Suspended high above the water, it's a tightly woven cup of flower heads, tied to the reed's waving stems. Feather-lined, it's a cozy home for 4 hungry chicks. Their parents work in shifts to bring them insects every 5 minutes. The weight of a £2 coin, this tiny bird has travelled 3,000 miles from Africa to breed here. This is one of 70 nests that David knows on this site.
I'm just going to reach in and carefully take one of these chicks out of the nest.
David rings the chicks when they are around 5 days old. He gives them a unique code so he can track them throughout their life. Over the years, David's ringed an astonishing 2,500 chicks. With their eyes barely open and no feathers, it's hard to believe these tiny chicks will leave the nest in just a week. In another nest, these 8-day-old youngsters look on course to fledge soon. But there's a dark side to this reed warbler story. They share the reed beds with a bird we know well, thanks to its familiar call. The cuckoo, the villain of this story. An anonymous chick hatches in a reed warbler nest. It's an imposter. Masters of deception, cuckoos lay a single egg in the nests of other birds. And they love reed warbler nests. The cuckoo chick has hatched first, and within hours, it gets to work. Still blind, driven only by a killer instinct, she ejects the reed warbler eggs from the nest, using special claws at the tips of her featherless wings. The unsuspecting parents continue to feed the cuckoo con artist. It grows and grows until it's 3 times the size of its adoptive mum. But there's another side to this tale. Cuckoos are struggling in Britain. We've lost 3/4 of the population in the last 50 years. So reed warblers offered them a lifeline. Their recent success could help cuckoos recover as well. These hidden worlds are full of secrets, known by only a few. And even our well-trodden paths have some watery surprises. Along the edges of our ponds, canals and lakes, places we often take a walk, there's a charming little creature you'll be lucky to spot. Immortalized as Ratty in The Wind and the Willows, he's actually a water vole. His fast-paced life needs a lot of fuel. Water voles eat 80% of their body weight a day. That's like you or me eating 50 cabbages. Their long front teeth are the perfect tool for chopping up the 227 different plants that make up their diet. But their greatest challenge is finding somewhere to live. Water voles need a secure waterside burrow in which to hide away. Come summer, youngsters venture out on their own. They're in a race to find the perfect home. And the property market is flooded with first-time buyers. This one has found a suitable spot and starts digging a secret underwater entrance. This is a prime location with a handy nearby restaurant. An island of tasty grass. Another vole has come to look around, but he's definitely not welcome. Water voles are fiercely territorial, prepared to fight to the death. A raised tail signals defeat, and the intruder beats a hasty retreat. The perfect home for a water vole is one with good access to food and an easy escape route. Because water voles make a tasty snack for so many predators. Most don't reach their second birthday. The warmer weather brings a busy time for another of our lovable wetland characters. For Mr. Toad, spring is all about finding a mate. Amorous amphibians gather at large ponds like this one in Somerset. Once they awake from hibernation, they return to their birthplace to breed. A journey of up to 2 miles. Males arrive first and eagerly await the larger females. When one finally appears, she quickly draws a crowd of suitors, all desperate to mate. With 5 males for every female, she soon disappears beneath a frenzy of thrashing bodies. More and more testosterone-fueled males join in. They create a toad ball, smothering the hapless female. Their enthusiasm can be deadly. Some females are crushed and drown in the chaos. For the males, it's a test of strength. Only one will get to mate. One by one, the weaker toads let go, leaving a single victor, the strongest toad around. The exhausted couple break away, searching for a quiet place to lay. In the next 24 hours, they weave a 7-meter chain of spawn among the plants. Within days, the pool is laced with thousands of eggs. The next generation has been secured. To the east, on the Suffolk coast, romance is a little more refined. The Avet is a dapper chap, the elegant aristocrat of our wetlands. These wading birds were extinct in Britain 160 years ago, but now they're a regular sight up and down the country. During the Second World War, flooded military defences along our east coast inadvertently gave avocets a new home. Many of these man-made wetlands remained, and Britain is now home to 1,500 breeding pairs. Their diet of small insects and shrimps requires a special tool, unique amongst British birds. A long, upturned beak sweeps from side to side, searching for food. In spring, the avocets need plenty of energy. It's the breeding season, and males and females are gathering for a strange ritual in the shallows. A female strikes an elegant pose to show she's in the mood. The male mustn't be too keen. He preens himself while gently stepping around his paramour, doing his best to hold her attention. Eventually, he makes his move. It's all over in a flash. Crossed bills mark the end of this graceful courtship. The female lays up to 4 eggs in a shallow scrape on the ground. This exposed nest needs both parents to protect it. A tough job for these delicate-looking birds. But appearances can be deceptive. Once nesting begins, these graceful birds reveal a feisty side. The lagoon is a crowded space, but that's no excuse. Trespassers aren't tolerated, regardless of their size. Black-headed gulls are the avocet's greatest threat. An unattended egg would make an easy meal. After 3.5 weeks, the chicks finally arrive. They feed themselves almost straight away. But it's a few days before the beak gets its distinctively upturned shape. With predators all around, their life still hangs in the balance. Less than half of all chicks will make it. But each one that does is another victory for one of Britain's greatest conservation success stories. Britain's most iconic wetlands are our reed beds. Reeds grow in many of our water worlds. Here in Suffolk, this single plant takes over the landscape. This golden carpet provides a safe haven for many creatures. Including the lord of the reeds, the marsh harrier. With their broad, metre-wide wings, they can float slowly over the reeds, a technique known as quartering. Methodically, they scan for small mammals, frogs or chicks. Every year, our resident marsh harriers are joined by migrants from Africa, ready to breed. They hide their nests deep within the reeds. But their young are exposed at ground level. Otters, stoats and gulls are all on the hunt for an easy meal. So the harriers do everything they can to keep the location a secret. Dad does most of the hunting. When he makes a catch, instead of flying to the nest, he calls to Mum. She flies out to meet him, and when she's underneath him, he releases his catch, and she expertly snatches the food in midair. This dramatic display is dual purpose. It secures the parents' bond and means that only the female need return to the nest, helping to keep the youngsters hidden. These majestic birds of prey are actually some of our most vulnerable creatures. 50 years ago, there was just one breeding pair in Britain, as many of the reed beds were drained. But thanks to a huge effort by conservationists, marsh harrier numbers are now at their highest in a century. Some of the most beautiful and majestic views in Britain are the deep water lakes and lochs of northern England and Scotland. Glaciers of the last ice age gouged deep valleys, and when the ice melted, these great hollows filled with water. Tucked away in Scotland's Cairngorms National Park is Loch Petulish, a place of apparent tranquility. But lurking beneath the surface is Britain's top freshwater predator, A creature with a formidable reputation. The pike, otherwise known as the water wolf. Its torpedo-like body can reach 1.5 meters long. Most of us have no idea that such an impressive beast lurks within many of Britain's waterways. Pike are ambush predators. With razor-sharp teeth, they grab anything from frogs and fish to ducklings and voles. They use their array of fins to make fine adjustments, allowing them to sit motionless and unnoticed. Their long, muscular bodies are perfectly built for quick bursts of speed. Once they've picked their target, they can propel themselves at speeds of 10 miles an hour. It's a dramatic world beneath the surface that only a few are lucky enough to glimpse. Summer brings a familiar sight to our wetlands. Dragonflies and dainty damselflies with their dazzling colours. These are some of the most successful animals on our planet. They've been here since before the dinosaurs. But few of us have seen the extraordinary emergence of these prehistoric dragons. This 5-centimetre alien is an immature dragonfly called a larva. She sheds her hard outer casing up to 15 times, allowing her to grow. After 2 years underwater, she's embarking on a remarkable journey as she finally leaves her watery nursery. Now the stage is set for one of nature's most incredible transformations. From a creature of science fiction nightmare into one of the jewels of the British summer. New life writhes within her weary body. Pressure builds, and her outer skin bursts open, giving the first tantalizing glimpse of a very different creature. This is the most dangerous moment in her life. She's an easy meal for any passing bird. She gulps a first breath of air, inflating her body. Blood-like fluid pumps into her wrinkled wings, which gradually unfurl. She's vulnerable. She can't fly until her body and wings have hardened. But with hundreds of millions of years of practice, she's timed this magical moment to perfection. She emerges in the early hours of the morning while most predators are still asleep. As her wings harden, they turn translucent. An hour later, they open, and a southern hawker dragonfly dazzles in the early morning light. The powerful muscles in her body start to warm up, preparing for her maiden flight. The wings charge up, and she's away. Most adult dragonflies live for only 2 weeks, a brief spell in which to find a mate. Some give rise to a spectacle, little understood and rarely ever seen. Dawn on the watery reed beds of the Somerset Levels. Dragonflies have been roosting overnight. Covered in dew, they're cold, wet and lethargic, waiting for the morning sun. These 4-spotted chasers have distinctively tapered bodies, unlike any other dragonfly. And unlike any other dragonfly, they've gathered en masse, perched quite still in their hundreds. This phenomenon has only been witnessed a handful of times. Perhaps they're seeking safety in numbers, but no one knows for sure. The rising sun charges them up. As soon as their wings are dry, they lift off, ending this magical show. Our wetlands creepy crawlies are food for many birds. But one has an ingenious way of hiding. The water spider. One of around 650 species in Britain, is the only spider in the world to live almost entirely underwater. Although aquatic, this female still needs to breathe air. So, she takes it with her. She collects it from the surface. It clings to the hairs on her abdomen and legs. She can breathe through her tummy for short bursts of time, but she needs a more permanent supply. She starts by spinning an underwater web, using silk from her spinnerets. This web isn't to catch prey. She's building her own scuba tank. By collecting large bubbles, she gradually creates a reservoir of air. A subaquatic chamber encased in a waterproof silk layer. The casing requires careful reinforcing. She needs it to be as big as possible. It takes several trips to the surface before her bubble has enough air. A huge effort for a tiny spider. As well as an air supply, it's an underwater sanctuary for a much-needed rest. And a dry place where she can care for her all-important hairs. Now she only needs to go up to the surface once a day to top up her tank. It's an extraordinary way for a spider to conquer an alien world. In winter, these wetlands attract millions of birds from northern Europe, taking advantage of our milder weather. And one species we don't usually think of as a water bird finds food and sanctuary in some of the soggiest parts of the country. 8 million starlings arrive from the continent to join our resident flocks. During the day, they feed in small flocks across our countryside and in our back gardens. Black from a distance, but up close their plumage looks bright and iridescent. Starlings are intelligent birds, always scouting an opportunity. If one finds a new food source, it tells the rest of the flock. At a farm in Pembrokeshire in West Wales, they arrive like clockwork, checking in as the cattle are fed 3 times a day. Thousands of starlings wait in the wings for an easy meal. This time of year, they need to eat half of their body weight every day. Probing the silage with their beaks, they search for energy-rich maize seeds hidden inside. Then a quick drink to wash it all down. In the late afternoon, they head towards their roost site, joining with other flocks along the way. And it's the nearby reed beds that offer refuge for the night. These spectacular gatherings happen the length and breadth of Britain, from Aberdeenshire to Cornwall, Lancashire to Kent. And just before they stop for the night, they put on a breathtaking show. Tens of thousands of small bodies seemingly flying as one. But predators are gathering too. Hen harriers, marsh harriers, kestrels, and peregrine falcons, all eyeing up an opportunity for a feast over the reeds. They're up against the world's best formation flyers. Starlings can react 10 times faster than any human pilot. These swirling movements, called murmurations, make it hard for predators to target one bird in the middle of a hypnotizing flock. But the world's fastest bird takes them on. The peregrine. Seizing his moment, he accelerates into the flock to make a catch, punching a hole in the starling's tight cloud. But the vast majority make it, dropping down into the safety of the reeds, and the dance of the starlings is over. Millions of birds, along with many other creatures, seek shelter and protection in our water worlds. These are places with more diversity than anywhere else in Britain, providing refuge for an extraordinary array of animals. Water brings safety for many, but in these precious pools, competition is fierce. Survival means knowing if your neighbours are friend or foe. But the charm of our water worlds is in the secrets and mysteries that still lie within. Of all the islands that make up the British Isles, just over 100 are inhabited by people, leaving thousands of isolated, little visited, magical pockets of land. A pilgrimage to these island sanctuaries reveals they're alive with the most extraordinary wildlife. Iconic animals living secret lives, reaping the benefits of isolation, but also having to master the challenges brought by living on an island. North Ronaldsay, Scotland, the outermost of the Orkney Islands, home to 50 people, and a very special flock, 3,000 strong. Not of birds, but of extremely rare sheep. These short-tailed Orkneys show just what it takes to live on a remote island. For most of the year, they're forced to eke out an existence on the narrow North Ronaldsay shore. These semi-feral animals are kept on the beaches by a man-made border. A vast dry stone wall, running all the way round the island's 13-mile perimeter. It's the longest wall of its kind in the world. First constructed in the 1830s, it protects the island's crops. Which means the sheep have taken up a unique diet. They live almost entirely on seaweed. Over generations, their digestive systems have changed to such an extent that any other food would make them ill. Even though they're barely domesticated, these rare animals still need to be sheared, and their annual haircut is one of the only occasions that they come inside the island's wall. But used to hanging out on the beach, it's not something the sheep appear to fancy. Rounding up the runaways involves the whole of North Ronaldsay's human flock. The entire island turns out for what is the last example of community agriculture in Britain. Known as the Sheep Pund, this group effort has been going on for more than 150 years. Truly wild sheep don't need shearing as they naturally shed their winter coat when the time's right. A few domesticated breeds also do this, but most need to be shorn. The Orkney sheep have a soft underlayer to keep them warm and a longer, hairy outer coat to keep out the weather. This is a scene that's barely changed in 100 years, protected by the remoteness of North Ronaldsay. Island life isn't always idyllic. At times, it's brutal. Beaches become battlegrounds, the site of deadly conflict between our largest land mammals. On the Isle of Rum in the Scottish Hebrides, red deer stags are preparing for battle. In October, they fight for the right to breed. In an annual event known as the Rut. It begins with a shouting match. Enormous bellows to attract females and intimidate competition. Some rivals will run. But a serious contender just bellows right back. These stags' entire lives have built to this moment. For the fighters, it's a dangerous time. Driven by deep-rooted desire, they can battle to the point of exhaustion. And some die of heart failure or even stress. Should this happen, as sad as it is for one animal, for meat-eating islanders, it's a bonanza. Most islands are free of foxes and other scavenging mammals. So this carcass on the Isle of Mull is set to become sole property of a rabble of bickering birds. First on the scene are hooded crows. These highly sociable birds have over 20 different calls. They'll eat anything from berries to shellfish, and of course carrion like this. They have a complex hierarchy within the murder, as a group of crows is known. But that's not the only pecking order that must be respected. The feast has caught the attention of the crows' larger cousins, ravens. These are the biggest birds in the crow family. And they also know who's boss. Higher-ranked ravens get first dibs on food, until they too need to give way to a more aggressive species. The buzzard, the most widespread of Britain's birds of prey, with as many as 80,000 breeding pairs. As well as eating carrion, they hunt mammals and birds. The ravens are loath to give way. With so many animals in attendance, squabbling is inevitable. and the raucous dinner attracts the attention of an uninvited guest. Able to pinpoint a rabbit from 2 miles away, a golden eagle easily spots the feast. Mull has the ideal habitat for this king of birds. Its wide open landscape, reaching from the highest hilltop down to the sea, provides great hunting terrain. The eagle's colossal wingspan, more than 2 meters, carries it across a range of up to 90 square miles. An excellent hunter, the eagle is also an opportunist, and this meal is too good a chance to pass up. Golden eagles take several years to reach maturity, and the distinct white markings show that this male is only 6 months old. With no natural predators, they can live for more than 20 years. Their main threat comes from human activity. So it's little wonder that these rugged islands have one of the largest concentrations of eagles on Earth. Separated from mainland Britain, life on our islands is often unique. Far to the north is an isolated pocket of land where special animals prosper due to a rare set of circumstances. Otters. They live in all kinds of aquatic habitats, from freshwater rivers and lakes to these saltwater shores. Fully grown, they reach more than 1 meter long and weigh in at almost 14 kilos. Although dog otters are larger, it's the females that call the shots. They're fiercely territorial, especially when caring for cubs. At the sight of another otter, Mum reacts with aggression. Fighting is extremely dangerous. The otter's long, curved canine teeth make vicious weapons. This time, Mum wins out. To avoid constant conflict, the otters have a way of signposting their turf. They mark it with a cocktail of scent known as a sprint. The cub's fantastic mother will be with them every step of the way in their first year of life, teaching them all they need to know and providing every meal they eat. Their island contains one of the highest densities of otters in Europe, and there's a simple reason why. The Shetland Islands lie over 100 miles north of the mainland. far out in the North Atlantic. They should be surrounded by freezing water. But due to a current funneling up from as far south as Spain, the animals frolic in surprisingly warm, nutrient-rich water. It's comfortable for swimming and supports a wealth of marine life. No wonder that the Shetland otters do so well. It just goes to show how each of our 6,000 islands can be different. Each is a very particular kind of oasis, providing just what certain animals need to flourish. Otters may be a rare sight on mainland Britain, but on Shetland, in places, there's an otter for every mile of coastline. "300 miles south, not far from Edinburgh, is another densely populated island. One that provides safe haven for hundreds of thousands of animals. A quarter of all of Europe's seabirds breed on our islands and coasts, often in enormous colonies. With its vast basalt cliffs, perfect for nesting, the Isle of May is a jewel in the crown of all our breeding hotspots. This female Arctic tern has just arrived. Now she's waiting for her partner to show up. Each tern has a unique call that it uses when returning to its colony to breed. But her partner is yet to complete a long and dangerous journey spanning 3 oceans. Arctic terns are long-distance travelers. In fact, these record-breaking wanderers make the greatest migration of any animal on Earth. Traveling an incredible 50,000 miles to Antarctica and back means that the birds see 2 summers each year, ours in the north and another on the other side of the world. As a result, Arctic terns see more daylight in a year than any other creature on the planet. What draws them back and forth across the world are fishing grounds. Each March they leave the rich pickings of the Antarctic's Weddell Sea to fly across the planet, arriving at the Isle of May 6 weeks later. These ocean wanderers mate for life, but don't travel together. So it takes a while for a couple to be reunited on this extremely busy island. Up to 285 different species visit the Isle of May, totaling more than 200,000 birds. Finally, the female's patient wait is over. Her mate may have spent 3 months winging his way around the globe, but this is the breeding season, and he's keen to get on with it. The female will start laying in just 10 days' time, so the pair had better find a home. Luckily, terns aren't picky. They make do with a scrape in the dirt. As is the case on many islands, there's no need for an actual nest, as there are no ground predators around to steal their eggs. It'll be a 3-week wait until the eggs hatch. Until then, Mum and Dad just have to sit tight. Of course, it's not just birds that visit our islands. There's a much-loved mammal that's also drawn to their shores. Over 80% of Europe's grey seals are found around our islands. They're the biggest animal breeding on Britain's shores, and may well be the most curious. One of the largest groups is around the Farne Islands off the coast of Northumberland. 6,000 live here year-round. Jane Hardy is a wild swimmer with an immense passion for these charismatic animals.
The waters here are fantastic for seals because they've got no predators. In other parts of the world, there's sharks, killer whales. The temperature's perfect for them. They've got a nice layer of blubber. They don't mind the cold.
Feeding on a wide variety of fish, squid and octopus, grey seals spend 80% of their time below water, often staying down for 30 minutes at a time.
The seals on the Farne Islands are particularly unique because there's so many shipwrecks off the Farne Islands. Boats go out regularly with divers, so the seals are sort of used to humans being around them, watching them and appreciating them.
If this seal looks a little familiar, it could be because it's distantly related to your family pet. A few million years ago, seals shared a common ancestor with dogs.
It's absolutely wonderful to see the seals in the natural environment. There's a tiny, tiny amount of fear, but they're not threatening either because they're just going about their business.
With females up to 1.5 meters long and weighing 150 kilos, and males almost twice that, they inspire a healthy respect. Wild swimming gives Jane a privileged view of these curious creatures. And as a nation, we're equally lucky to have so many island habitats dotted around our coastline, providing homes for many inhabitants and visitors. Get a really big bunch of visitors together, and it can start to feel like they're taking over. Each year, around 600,000 puffins return to breeding sites in England, Scotland and Wales. From March, cliffs up and down our coastline are dotted with large colonies of these stocky, bright-beaked birds. They live in an almost military fashion, migrating to our islands in a highly synchronized formation. They even appear to fly in organized squadrons. They launch as one, into the wind. And all land with it when touching down. This results in vast numbers of birds on the move, with what appears to be matching flight plans. On Scotland's Isle of May, this 5-year-old male is one of nearly 100,000 puffins that will come here this year. This young chap is now of breeding age and is on the verge of making the biggest decision of his life. Puffins are immensely loyal birds, and once he selects a mate, he'll stick with her for life. He's found a female who's interested. And bill tapping is a sure sign that the couple are ready to take things to the next level. Having a long-term partner means parents mate earlier in the season, giving their offspring a head start in life. Having found each other, the pair need to start house hunting. Precisely where to nest brings another momentous decision. Puffins are not only loyal to each other, these first-time buyers will return to whatever burrow they choose, often for the rest of their lives. 3 weeks from now, all being well, this pair and their new burrow will have a new chick. At the other end of the country, a very different island off the coast of Dorset is refuge to a small colony of ancient Brits that may be the last of its kind. Ronaldsay Island, 500 acres of oak and pine forest, provides sanctuary for a very special colony of red squirrels. Once found all over Great Britain, these adorable animals are now very rare. It's due to the arrival of a powerful invasion force. Arriving on the British mainland around 150 years ago, American grey squirrels are larger, hardier animals. As a result, they've taken over from red squirrels in much of Britain. But isolated on Ronaldsay, this precious pocket of natives has been protected. There are currently thought to be around 200 red squirrels hiding out in this island retreat. Come autumn, they do what squirrels do best. They gather food. They eat all kinds of seeds, berries, fungi, and nuts. At this time of year, they come down to the ground to get as fat as they can. If this little guy really stuffs his face, he can increase his weight by 12% in just a few weeks, giving him an excellent chance of surviving the winter. Anything he can't squeeze in is buried for later. Each squirrel stashes thousands of nuts. Some are stolen by birds or other squirrels, but many are never unearthed. Meaning these little animals are inadvertently responsible for planting thousands of trees. The really remarkable thing about Ronaldsay's squirrels is that they're unique. Although the reintroduction of red squirrels in parts of mainland Britain has bumped up the numbers, the animals used were from Scandinavia. Which means this little band of brothers may be the last truly native red squirrels we have. For our Arctic terns on the Isle of May, the challenge of raising their young is underway. After 3 weeks incubation, the next generation of this world record-holding migratory bird has emerged. Although it's not ready to travel just yet, the instinctive wanderer is already keen to explore its surroundings. The parent's main task now is to keep the chick fed at a phenomenal rate. To be ready to fly in just 3 weeks' time, this youngster needs to grow 6 times its size. It's the equivalent of a newborn human baby growing to the size of a 5-year-old in less than a month. It's a monumental challenge for the parents. In his hurry, Dad fails to see that some fish are just too big. Keeping up the frantic pace is tough enough in fair weather. But this is Britain, and nowhere basks in sunshine for long. Stuck out in the North Sea, the Isle of May is often battered by storms. With winds reaching 70 miles an hour. Chicks must be sheltered from the elements. Wind and rain can sweep young ones off the cliffs. And left unprotected, they die of exposure. Through it all, the food must keep on coming. By the time it's 3 weeks old, this youngster must be strong enough to set out on her first massive journey, all the way to Antarctica. The Scottish Hebrides are a challenging place for anything to survive. But living here in small tribes are some of the hardiest animals in Britain. Feral goats. Legend has it that their forefathers swam ashore from the wreckage of the Spanish Armada 400 years ago. Now they're on the front line against the worst weather the Atlantic can throw at them. The goats just have to tough it out, and they can do it thanks to their coats. A cashmere undercoat keeps warm air next to their bodies, while their outer hairs protect them from the rain. When the weather gets really bad, the tribes come down from the hills to shelter from the wind. Living on an island means there are limits to what's available to eat. But that's not a problem for our feral goats. They'll wolf down anything, from gorse to seaweed. And they have 4 stomach compartments to break it all down. Like squirrels, they need to gain weight before winter when food is scarce. And they draw on their fat reserves to survive. These really are tough little beasts. They'll fight over everything, even a mouthful of dry seaweed. But sometimes, even goats realize it's just not worth the bother. It's now 6 weeks since 100,000 puffins made their way to the Isle of May to breed. In that time, our young bachelor has dated, wooed, and wed his bride. They've set up home and now have a puffling. That might sound like the birds are out of breath, but it's simply what puffin chicks are called. Like all puffins, our couple only have one puffling. It enables them to focus solely on his survival. Getting him fattened up and ready to fly with a steady supply of food. Dad's short, fast wings beat up to 400 times a minute and have evolved to help him swim underwater. He can fly down to 60 meters. And catch multiple fish in a single dive. His bill has a serrated edge and a special hinge, so it can hold dozens of fish at a time. But these fishing trips will soon come to an end. Across the island, after weeks underground, pufflings are beginning to emerge. Yet to develop their parents' splendid colour scheme, the youngsters need to exercise and build their flight muscles. Although being raised on an island means there are no foxes, rats, stoats or weasels, there are winged predators. Thieves you may recognize from the seaside. The ones that steal your chips or pinch your sandwich. Given half a chance, these gulls will graduate from thief to killer. They have their own chicks to feed. And would happily snatch a young puffin. For those that make it, the time is fast approaching when the highly synchronized puffin colony will leave the island. They'll head far out to sea and won't return until next year. Skomer Island, off the Pembrokeshire coast in Wales, is famed for its enormous number of birds. Professor Tim Guilford from the University of Oxford has spent his life exploring islands like this and observing the wildlife that lives in these special places. Tim has been visiting Skomer for decades, studying its many seabirds. But there's one seabird that, despite its vast numbers, remains more mysterious than any other: the Manx shearwater. Skomer, together with its sister island Skokkum, houses more than half the world's population of Manx shearwaters, making this their most important breeding colony on Earth. The breeding season begins in March, when the birds arrive to nest in burrows, using the same one each year, and for the most part, staying with the same partner. Wary of predatory gulls that patrol by day, they wait until nightfall to return to their nests. This, and the fact that they spend most of their time far out to sea, makes it extremely tricky to study them. But Tim has found a way, using miniature tracking technology to spy on their daily routines. Putting trackers on the birds and plotting the data they gather has allowed Tim to gain huge insight into the birds' mysterious lives. Each coloured track shows a different shearwater's journey as it heads out to sea. Strangely, some of them appear to be away for a week or even 2 weeks at a time. At first, Tim thought these might be parents giving up on their chicks. But far from abandoning their young, it turns out that the shearwaters are employing a clever parenting technique. While one parent makes short trips to collect fish for the chicks, the other is travelling further afield to find larger meals for itself. It's a unique strategy, and it's clearly successful. Not only do 90% of Manx shearwater chicks fledge and leave the island each season, but the adult birds are very long-lived, known to survive for 50 years or more. Their life away from Skomer remains largely unknown. But at least one mystery has been solved by the man who spent his life studying islands and their animals. As summer comes to an end, a more streamlined plumage adorns our young, long-distance traveller. After just 3 weeks on its rich fish diet, the young Arctic tern now weighs more than its parents. It's finally ready to undertake its massive migration to the far side of the world. The first leg of the 1,000,000 miles this tiny bird will cover in its lifetime. The islands it leaves behind are wild and challenging places. Their isolation provides sanctuary to thousands of rare and very special species. Some that live here permanently, others that are drawn back each year. But all have proved that they can adapt to the struggles of island life. Famed throughout the world, our countryside is a national glory, and it's right on our doorstep. It looks like a timeless, peaceful place, but it's actually one of our fastest changing landscapes and home to some of our best loved wildlife. Barn owls are silent assassins. They normally hunt at night, but this owl is up late, hoping for one last kill. She has to eat at least 4 times before she turns in. She's looking for voles, shrews, and mice. They hide in long, rough grass, and there's a lot less of it than there used to be. She hunts around the edges of the fields, where the farmer has left the grass a bit longer. She's listening for any sound of movement. Barn owls have the best hearing of any known animal, even able to detect a mouse's heartbeat. Her flight is completely silent. Her meter-wide wings have very soft, light feathers that absorb any noise. The odds seem stacked in this assassin's favor, but most hunts fail. As few as 1 in 10 succeed. Time is running out this morning, and she's not the only one looking for food. A potential thief is watching her every move. And when our owl finally strikes, the kestrel seizes the moment. In a rarely seen encounter, 2 iconic birds of prey battle it out for food. Only one of these hunters will eat this morning. The kestrel is fast and agile, less than half the weight of the barn owl. She's intent on stealing the vole with her 2-inch claws. A fight on the ground is too dangerous for the owl. Most barn owls give up their meal rather than risk injury. The thief wins. With less and less long grass to hunt in, and more competition, life's tough for a barn owl. But there are some animals that positively thrive in our rapidly changing countryside. Foxes are brilliantly adaptable. They can live almost anywhere. These 5-week-old cubs are growing up in a secluded corner of Dorset. They weigh less than 1 kilogram and are still dependent on Mum's milk. She's never far away. In just 3 weeks, they'll have to hunt for themselves. Their playful curiosity builds vital skills. The odd tumble is all part of the process. Mum watches over them while Dad's out hunting. Anything from small mammals to worms, insects, and even berries. When it comes to food, foxes are just not fussy. That's why they're one of our most successful animals, living throughout Britain. But there's a twist to this tale. Because at night, our fluffy foxes have a dark side, which leaves everyone running scared. Britain's countryside is full of familiar creatures, though often we only get glimpses of their lives. Few of us have ever seen what they get up to after dark. Until now. Highly specialized heat-sensitive cameras give us a rare glimpse of this magical and sometimes sinister nighttime world. Fallow deer, one of Britain's 6 species of deer, are wary by nature. They stay alert throughout the night, only taking short naps. Something spooked them. A fox. But he's no threat to them. He's targeting a much smaller animal. Tiny wood mice come out to feed under cover of darkness. They have voracious appetites, eating almost constantly. This one's rooting around for seeds and berries. He's quick on his feet, and he needs to be. He's a favorite food of many predators. Very few wood mice live from one summer to the next. The fox can hear a mouse squeak from over 100 meters away. He's getting closer. The mouse freezes. To run now would be fatal. The fox digs for food just a short pounce away. This time, the fox misses him. But the mouse will have to stay alert if he's to make it through the night. The countryside is alive day and night, as this unique view illustrates. And animals have found a way to live alongside us, despite all the changes we continue to make. Today, 3/4 of our countryside is farmland. From upland sheep farms in the north and west, to low-lying pastures in the south, Hedges are an important part of this checkerboard landscape. They've marked boundaries since Roman times and are one of our most important wildlife havens. There are 280,000 miles of them across Britain, enough to stretch 11 times around the Earth. Spring brings a hedgerow spectacle. Flowering hawthorn decorates our field edges, attracting a wealth of insects. Bees rely on the flowers for their favourite nectar meal. We have more than 250 species, all vital pollinators for our crops and wildflowers. The nectar attracts all manner of insects, including hoverflies and butterflies, like the stunning green hairstreak, Britain's only green butterfly. Throughout the year, hawthorn flowers feed more than 150 different types of insect. All tasty food for our countryside birds. Our hedgerows are vital corridors between woodland and grassland. They're often the only refuge in the farmed landscape. A nesting site and a songpost. In summer, the British countryside, golden and glowing, bursts into life. Male fallow deer find food and shelter in the crops, but hiding's not their forte. Their distinctive broad antlers give them away. Tens of thousands of fallow deer have found a way to live alongside us, even during our busy harvesting season. They're one of the biggest species to have made their home on Britain's 200,000 or so farms. With no natural predators, little disturbs their peace, except for the odd combine harvester. Originally from the Mediterranean, fallow deer have been here for more than 1,000 years. One of Britain's 6 deer species. On the Welsh border in Herefordshire, Jack Pantle's family has been farming here for more than 100 years. Jack's from a long line of arable farmers and, like many of them, has a special connection with nature. He sees himself as a guardian of the countryside and the wildlife that lives here. And he considers his farm to be in the animals' territory, so does his best to look after it with wildlife in mind. Harvest time offers a chance to see which animals are doing well. While he's at work in the fields, one of Britain's most impressive predators arrives on the scene, eyeing up an opportunity. Buzzards have powerful eyesight, able to spot a rabbit from over a mile away. Hunting and pesticides once threatened their existence, but around 300,000 buzzards hunt over Britain today. Rabbits, mice and voles hide easily when the crops are high, but as soon as they're cut down, it leaves them exposed. It's a time of plenty for these highly adaptable birds of prey. But it won't last long. The buzzard's prey will soon head for cover. Jack leaves wild areas at the edges of the fields to create space for wildlife, including insects for these swallows to eat after their 6,000-mile migration from South Africa. Every April, they come back to the farm to set up home in the old outbuildings. These 3 hungry chicks need feeding up to 400 times a day. That's every 2 minutes. Their parents rely on the plentiful insects along Jack's field edges. Swallows aren't the only animals making use of roof spaces across our countryside. Our farms and homes make cosy refuges for the world's only flying mammals, bats. Many bats use tree cavities, roosting there by day and coming out at night to feast on our countryside insects. But as our trees have given way to farmland, they rely more and more on our buildings. This Hampshire farm has some extra lodgers in the attic, and bat enthusiasts Ian and Nick are setting up for a night of high-tech wildlife watching. Bats find their insect prey using sound waves and echoes at frequencies we can't hear. But Nick's bat detector picks up these high-pitched sounds and identifies exactly which species are here. The bats making their home in this roof are brown long-eared bats, one of the most endearing of our 18 species. Their large ears, almost as long as their body, enable them to hear a moth in flight. When resting, they curl them back like ram's horns. Most of us will only ever glimpse a bat as it flies past at dusk. But Ian's thermal imaging camera shows exactly what's going on. It reveals the bat's incredible agility. And the importance of roost sites like these in the heart of our farms. With the help of this technology, we now know that over half of our bat species use our buildings, showing how vital these man-made homes are in our changing landscape. For Britain's fastest land animal, the wide expanses of Norfolk are a perfect playground. Brown hares are well equipped for these open fields. They have excellent hearing, a keen sense of smell, and all-round vision. On a hot spring day, the Mad March hare could be vulnerable in this heat. They're normally nocturnal. But these fresh new shoots are too good to resist. Brown hares are found on almost all of our open farmland throughout Britain. They've made the most of this man-made landscape since arriving with the Romans nearly 2,000 years ago. Hares are bigger and nearly twice as heavy as their rabbit cousins, with longer ears. Powerful hind legs give them speeds of up to 45 miles an hour, quick enough to finish a 100-meter sprint in just 5 seconds. That's almost twice as fast as Usain Bolt. But there's a different kind of contest going on here. In spring, Hares have only one thing on their mind. A young male catches the scent of a female who may be ready to mate. He makes a move and is quickly rejected. She's picky. Only the fittest males will do. So she makes him chase her. All this running around tests his strength and endurance. And it's a real test in this heat. Nevertheless, our young male is persistent. But his time is running out. With temperatures rising, soon they'll have to retreat to the shade to rest up. The young buck gives it one last go to win over his female. But she sends him a clear message. Males use a spray of scent to show off, but from a female, it's a firm rejection. Our male is defeated. It's been a long morning for everyone. Our British countryside has changed more in the last 100 years than in the previous 2,000. The sheer speed of change puts a lot of our wildlife to the test. Hares and their rabbit cousins have had 2 millennia to adapt to our farmland. But there's a more recent arrival who's quickly made himself at home in our man-made landscape. A predator which stalks the fields of the Yorkshire Dales, making our farmland its hunting home. The local rabbits don't need to worry, because this hunter is far smaller than they are. Little owls are the size of a starling and the weight of a cricket ball. Unlike other owls, they often hunt in daylight and eat insects and other creepy crawlies. They were brought to Britain from Italy 100 years ago by wealthy landowners to eat garden pests. They adapted well and quickly spread. Their compact size means they can use small tree hollows to raise a family. But life in a little owl nest is far from cute and cozy. It can be brutal, because little owl chicks have a dark side. Mum lays up to 4 eggs that hatch a month later. Both parents work in shifts to bring a constant supply of worms, insects, and small rodents. The chicks ruthlessly compete for every meal. Only the strongest survive. When one chick starts to fall behind, he quickly dies. Now the other 3 have a better chance, but the fight's not finished yet. Despite the parents' best efforts, often only 1 or 2 chicks make it through. Just 1 in 3 little owls sees its first birthday. In this nest, there's only 1 survivor. He takes his first tentative steps outside home. Head bobbing is a sign he's anxious. Mum keeps a watchful eye from nearby. His fluffy, downy feathers show he's not quite ready to fly. Just a week later, with fully developed plumage, his life has reached a critical point. He makes his first flight to take up position on Mum's favourite perch, while she watches from close by. The little owl has quickly made a home in our countryside without having to compete with our native owls. In the 100 years that they've been here, they've adapted to the farmland we see today. But if you want to see what Britain looked like when little owls arrived, then you have to come to a very special place in Yorkshire. Just 30 miles from York, there's a place where the farmers have gone back in time, where they've swapped riding their tractors for riding their cattle. Rosewood Farm in the lower Derwent Valley is a unique place for wildlife, thanks to pioneering livestock farmer Natalie Rose. She's borrowed grazing methods from the past and works the land according to ancient traditions. Natalie's cows never stay in one field for very long. She keeps her herd of 140 cattle on the move. They never graze the same patch of grass for more than a day a year. This mimics grazing animals on the Serengeti or bison in America, where the herds are always moving. The result is longer grass, so flowers are able to thrive and wildlife moves in droves. Rosewood has huge numbers of endangered lapwing that were once numerous on British farms. And there are rare species of wildflower thriving here. These flower-rich meadows are mini jungles with up to 40 different animals in every square metre. And these rich grasslands are home to one of Rosewood's greatest successes. The farm's been called the barn owl capital of Europe. They have more than 60 nesting sites for barn owls. Elsewhere, barn owls struggle, but here, large areas of wild meadow mean plenty of mice and voles for these silent hunters to feast on. And raise a family. Farms like Rosewood are making a success of both farming and looking after wildlife. Wildlife protection can come from the most surprising sources. 250 miles south, Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire has been untouched by intensive farming for more than 100 years. Protected by the military as a training ground, the resulting grasslands are now home to an exotic, historic relic. Great bustards were once part of our landscape, but were hunted out of existence nearly 200 years ago. Today, a small population, reintroduced from Russia, is making Salisbury Plain their home again. Bigger than a turkey, standing a metre tall, they're the heaviest flying birds in Britain. They feed on the plentiful seeds and insects on these protected plains. In spring, males get ready to mate. They grow long white whiskers, and their feathers become more vivid. They develop a chestnut-coloured band on their chest that gets wider and brighter with age. With all this finery, it's time to show off. But these gentlemen's clubs have a strict hierarchy. This mature male is Kingpin, but every morning he has to defend his title against all challengers with a flamboyant dance. Being in the top spot gives him the best chance of mating with the females. He cocks his tail, lowers his wings, and fans them out. Exposing a frill of white feathers. Then he puffs out his throat, revealing the plumes beneath his beak. A showy display of dominance. This morning, he has a challenger. A young male has his eye on the crown. They start by circling each other. It's the cue for a dance-off. The younger rival throws in some of his best moves. But it's not enough, and a firm peck puts him in his place. The dejected younger male tucks his show feathers away. For now, his older rival is still cock of the walk. With a growing number of breeding pairs, great bustards are flourishing on Salisbury Plain. It's protected spaces like this that allow us to enjoy some of Britain's more unusual wildlife. Across Britain, there are many unique habitats that would never have existed if we hadn't farmed them. One of the most precious of all is our lowland heaths, scattered across England's mild south. They hardly look like they've been farmed, but they have, and quite aggressively. They're the result of ancient intensive farming. Early farmers worked this land until the soil was exhausted. Heather and gorse took over, creating a unique and special new habitat. Low shrubs give food and shelter, so these rare heathlands are teeming with life. They're home to an astonishing 5,000 species of invertebrates. Butterflies flourish, like this silver-studded blue. The males have distinctive metallic spots on the underside of their wings. More than half of British dragonfly species are found here. 30% of our spiders, too. It's also the realm of one of Britain's most creative insects. And an exotic-looking reptile staging an extraordinary comeback. The lowland heaths of southern Britain are a metropolis for wildlife. Full of spiky gorse, this may not seem a cosy place for a home, but it's the site of one of Britain's most remarkable building programmes. A female heath potter wasp. She's not the ordinary wasp who spoils your picnic. The clue's in her name. She's a potter, one of the rarest and most unusual of Britain's 9,000 species of wasp. She cleans a gorse stem, ready to start building. To capture the start of this process on camera is very rare indeed. Now, like every good potter, she needs good clay. She softens it with water, collected from local pools, and expertly rolls a tiny ball of mud. Back at her chosen site, she starts to sculpt. Working tirelessly through the heat of the day, she brings more and more clay to add to the structure. A skilled potter and a perfectionist, she carefully moulds the clay using every part of her body, her mouthparts, her legs, and even her antennae. With the foundations laid, her structure can really take shape. She begins to fashion a bowl, which gradually becomes spherical. It takes several hours and more than 20 trips before her exquisite pot is complete. She leaves it to fire in the sun. Soon, her nest will be ready. She returns to lay a single egg in her pot, suspended on a strand of silk. But her hard work has only just begun. Her egg needs a larder of food ready for when it hatches, so she's on the hunt. She brings back caterpillars paralyzed by her sting. She starts with 7 small brown ones, but that's not enough. They get bigger and bigger. She wants to make sure her larva has plenty of food when it hatches. And up to 38 caterpillars can be stuffed into one tiny pot. To squeeze them in takes every ounce of effort. Finally, she seals her pot. Her parental duty's over for this egg. Time for a well-earned rest? No chance. It's straight on to the next pot. She may build a staggering 25 more in her short 3-month life. It may seem a lot of effort, but the young wasp needs good protection. Because our heathlands are the realm of exotic predators. Reptiles. We have 3 snake species, including the rare smooth snake. And we have lizards too, like the beautiful, endangered sand lizard. They're incredibly hard to spot, unless you know the tricks of the trade.
I keep my hands behind my back in what I call my Prince Charles walk, because I actually hold one hand to stop myself from going, look at that. Because when you move your hand and point, you freak out the lizards and they're not there anymore, so.
Peter Hill's been dubbed the Lizard Wizard. His skills have been refined thanks to years of working to protect these rare reptiles. Sand lizards bask in the early morning sun to raise their body temperature. This undulating heathland produces lots of little south-facing sun traps for them. The females are brown, but in spring, during breeding season, the males sport a bright cloak of colour to attract a mate.
It's a pretty intense period of activity for wildlife. And to add to that, looking at a fantastic little dragon that most people don't even know exists, it's just a superb experience.
Numbers have dropped due to loss and breakup of our heaths. And Peter's part of a huge effort to return these exquisite lizards to sites across 4 southern counties. Sand lizards have a unique back pattern, which is like a fingerprint. Recording these means Peter can track individuals. If you're a sand lizard, pretty much everything wants to eat you. So camouflage is vital. The lizard's skin patterns are broken up, allowing them to blend in perfectly with their surroundings. But Peter has an uncanny knack for finding them.
Most people don't notice them because they tend to be looking up and around at birds, etc. But you need to look down on these edges. These little soft pillows of moss that are at the base of the heather clumps. You have to walk really slowly. Make sure you're not casting a shadow in front of you, which will spook them. Here's a male sand lizard, basking on the edge. A sand lizard is a beautiful, exotic little ancient Briton.
Wherever we go in our countryside, we're not far from a connection with Britain's epic past. A beautiful landscape with an incredible diversity of wildlife. Home to the familiar and the not so familiar. Teeming with activity, night and day. Surprisingly dynamic, always changing, and most of all, a beautiful world on our doorstep, accessible to every one of us. That's the real glory of Britain's countryside. Britain's towns and cities are our fastest growing landscape. Wildlife might seem unwelcome. But take another look at our concrete jungles, and there's a land of opportunity for those who dare to explore. In fact, 47% of London is classified as green space. Parks, riverbanks, and private gardens are wildlife refuges coursing through our built-up land. There are plenty of chances for animals to succeed in this man-made world. As a result, our urban areas host a surprising number of wild pioneers. Over 13,000 species, and counting. But surviving in Britain's most modern landscape is no walk in the park. Just as we settle down for the night, a familiar neighbour begins to stir. Hedgehogs have lived amongst us for thousands of years, as roads and buildings have grown up around them. Untidy corners give them places to sleep. But in autumn, there's no time to lie around. In Basildon, Essex, this male is getting ready to hibernate. He needs to fatten up to more than half a kilo if he's to survive the winter. That means catching 100 slugs, snails and worms every night. But finding them in a single garden is a tall order. He must search the entire neighbourhood, travelling up to 2 miles a night to satisfy his appetite. It's no easy feat when your legs are just 4 centimetres long. And there are plenty of obstacles in his way. Surprisingly, hedgehogs are accomplished swimmers. A garden pond is merely a minor inconvenience. So long as it has an easy way out. Time to head next door. The grass may be greener. But a manicured lawn is not the promised land. Chemicals have rid it of pests. In other words, everything on a hedgehog's menu. Time for the hungry hog to move on. A wilder garden is what he needs. And its kindly owner has left a midnight feast. A welcome boost at this time of year. Truth is, hedgehogs are struggling in our modern world. 60 years ago, 30 million lived in Britain. Today, fewer than 1 million survive. Out in the countryside, intensive farming is destroying their food and shelter. And in our cities, more and more man-made barriers are getting in their way. Hedges with plenty of holes have been replaced with fences and walls, cutting off food supplies and even the chance to meet a mate. And as cities expand, so do our roads. Up to 100,000 hedgehogs, 10% of the population, are run over every year. So when you're out in the garden, spare a thought for our hedgehogs. They could do with a helping hand and a holy hedge. Britain's towns and cities now cover 6,500 square miles, around 7% of the country. While urban life isn't for everyone, one of our most adaptable animals has found a land of opportunity. Our urban fox population is soaring. Around 150,000 have set up home in England's towns and cities alone. One for every 300 human residents. But how can a hungry fox make a living in a man-made world? They first moved in the 1930s. Now they occupy 90% of our urban areas. In fact, Britain's cities have the highest densities of red fox in the world. Bristol was one of the first to be colonized. Today, there are 40 foxes per square mile. Take an evening stroll and a close encounter is almost guaranteed. It's easy to see why this vixen is so at home. She's hugely agile, negotiating the city's high walls and roads with ease. And she knows just where to find her food. Foxes aren't fussy. They scavenge 60% of what they eat. It's May, and the vixen has an even bigger appetite than normal. Hidden away, she has a family to feed. And with dawn approaching, she hasn't got long to fetch what they need. Not every animal is as adaptable as the fox. As our cities expand, pockets of wilderness are becoming increasingly important for some of our more delicate creatures. A female great-crested newt. A miniature dragon, on her way back to the pond where she hatched. 15 centimeters long, she's the largest of Britain's 3 newts, and by far the rarest. We've lost 500,000 ponds in the last 100 years. Vital breeding grounds for our native amphibians. So park ponds like this one in Royal Tunbridge Wells are a lifeline for this vulnerable species. The females greeted by a welcoming party of males. And they're dressed to impress. Their fancy crests are grown every year for this seasonal show. Like little dancing dinosaurs, the males show her their best moves. Eventually, one captures her heart. Now he has her full attention. Seizing the moment, he offers a gift, a packet of sperm, which she accepts, sucking it into a cavity at the base of her tail. Now to find somewhere to lay her fertilized eggs. She's looking for a particular kind of leaf. Clean and flexible. Then she deposits a single egg. A sticky coating glues the protective leaf in place. Finally, she squeezes it tight, making sure it's safely sealed. She'll prepare over 250 of these precious parcels. And in a few days' time, the next generation of great crested newts will hatch out in this protected urban oasis. But it's not just our parks. Our gardens, too, are vital refuges for wildlife. Luckily, we are a nation of gardeners. There are 24 million gardens in Britain today, occupying a quarter of our urban areas. But few of us notice the life and death dramas that play out under our noses. Our love of flowers and vegetables means our backyards are magnets to slugs. The average garden is home to 20,000 of these voracious little mollusks. Each one can eat several times its body weight in a sitting. Slugs aren't every gardener's favourite. But this gardener is lucky. His flower beds in Teignmouth, Devon, are home to a very special and secretive creature. A useful ally in the war on slugs. A slow worm. It might look like a snake, but this is a legless lizard. No limbs means it can follow its prey through the roughest terrain. This male is hot on the trail of his dinner. He's spotted movement. Now he uses scent to home in on his prey. The slow worm's tongue can literally taste the air, working out which of our 30 or so slug species has left this slime. Slow by name and slow by nature. But the slug is hardly blessed with speed either. One down, 19,999 to go. Our private gardens contain more than just food. They can also provide quiet spaces for animals to bring up their young. Behind Bristol's busy streets, our vixen has made these gardens her home. She's chosen well. Away from traffic, with plenty of cover, and a resident guardian angel watching over her. It's the perfect place to raise a family. Her 4 cubs were born and raised underground. Having food brought to them means that they don't have to risk venturing far. Nell Nile has been feeding foxes for the last 10 years. In fact, 1 in 10 Bristolians have claimed to do the same. Nell's witnessed a procession of fox families grow up just outside her kitchen window. It's an incredible view of a normally secretive animal. But according to Nell, this vixen is unusually shy. Her cubs will learn to be cautious too. A useful trait when foxes aren't everyone's cup of tea. No longer suckling from mum, the 5-month-old cubs are also fattening up on Nell's daily feed. It usually takes 10 months for cubs to achieve adult weight. But in Nell's garden, they reach full size much more quickly than that. It's no wonder Bristol's foxes are doing so well. Beyond the garden fence, city life can be hard. Britain's cities offer opportunities for a cast of wild characters. But the concrete jungle is a competitive place. In the heart of Edinburgh, gulls stake out the streets, and carrion crows are watching. A passing flock of pigeons catches their eye. A sure sign that there's food about. Feral pigeons are descended from our native rock doves and were domesticated 10,000 years ago. Tall city buildings replace cliff faces. And our lunchtime scraps substitute their natural diet of seeds. But today, they've fallen behind in the race for food. Grey squirrels, originally from North America, are opportunists, snatching chances where they can. They've forced out our native red squirrels and taken over the streets. They don't like to be pushed around, even by a gang of hungry pigeons. But in the battle for dominance, squirrels and pigeons know when to give way. Gulls are the heavyweights around here. While their populations are struggling on our coasts, numbers in our cities have trebled in the last 20 years. These urban invaders won't let anything get in their way. But the battle for Britain's streets is taking yet another twist. There's a new kid on the block, and it's already ruffling feathers. The peregrine falcon. In the 1950s, dangerous pesticides meant they almost became extinct. But now they're back, and they're taking over our urban skies. Elsewhere, they live on mountains and coastal cliffs. But the chimneys of Battersea Power Station are now prime peregrine real estate. The resident male uses the high-rise vantage point to spot his prey. And feral pigeon is his favourite food. London has over 800,000 of them, but they're surprisingly hard to catch. They can outpace a peregrine in level flight. The peregrine must choose his moment. He climbs to gain momentum, then dives. Plunging to earth, he can reach 200 miles an hour, making him the fastest animal on the planet. He singles out his target and splits it from the flock. There's nowhere to hide. The peregrine's powerful strike is enough to kill his prey. There's even time to pluck it on his way home. The peregrine's hunting skills have helped him and his mate successfully raise 4 chicks, right in the middle of one of the busiest building sites in London. They've had a helping hand. Peregrine conservation organisations and the Battersea Power Station Development Company constructed a special breeding tower just for this pair. And they have their very own minder. David Morrison is a retired builder who now helps to protect London's peregrines. David was part of the team that built the nest tower, and his job is to keep an eye on the adults and the chicks. They're only 6 weeks old, but 3 of the young peregrines have already made their first flight. The 4th is taking his time. Learning to fly in busy airspace is tricky. And his sister has just made a mistake. She's accidentally landed on a ledge at the base of one of the south towers. Crow country. They have their own chicks, and a predator on their patch is hardly welcome. The young peregrine doesn't know where to turn. David spots her predicament. With the busy building site just below, she's in danger of making a fatal error. The crows force her off the ledge. A mid-air strike throws her off balance. but she makes it to safety. Thanks to people like David, there are now over 30 pairs of peregrines nesting in London. And scores more in cities up and down the country. This new life suits them well. Plenty of tall buildings to call home, and plenty of pigeons to go around. Peregrines aren't the only birds swapping coastal cliffs for our urban ledges. The appeal of our cities tempts in some unlikely intruders, a long way from their natural home. Kittiwakes are ocean-going gulls, spending most of their lives out at sea, only returning to shore to breed. They usually nest on rugged coastal cliffs, but here in Newcastle and Gateshead, some have chosen the city life. In early spring, the birds travel 10 miles inland along the River Tyne to nest on one of the most famous bridges in Britain and its surrounding buildings. This colony of kittiwakes is the furthest inland of any in the world. So what are they doing here, in the heart of a busy city, so far from their ocean home? Coastal colonies are vulnerable to storms and larger predatory gulls that eat the kittiwake's eggs and chicks. Newcastle's high nooks and crannies provide a surprisingly sheltered place to raise a family. The adults work in shifts to take care of their young. While one stays with the chicks, the other heads out for food. But unlike their scavenging gull cousins, there's no food for them in town. They've chosen the protection of the city at the expense of a long journey for food. A meal requires a trip back out to sea to catch saltwater fish. They can be gone for up to 10 hours, a long time for hungry chicks. Kittiwakes first started nesting on the Tyne over 50 years ago. Today, there are over 2,000 birds, all jostling for a prime spot. City life has its challenges, and raising a family here doesn't always go to plan. Up to a quarter of nests fail. But for the ones that make it, the chicks transform from a ball of down into an elegant young bird in only a month. Choosing the hustle and bustle of the city has been a smart move for the Tyne kittiwakes. Coastal populations are in decline, but this population is thriving. While some urban invaders soar high above our heads, others are setting up home right beneath our feet. There are over 20,000 different insect species in Britain. Many have taken refuge in our towns and cities, where they take advantage of our habit of giving them just what they need. On the outskirts of Sandy in Bedfordshire, a bare bank. A man-made cutting in an urban park. Ideal home for the bee wolf, the largest solitary wasp in Britain. It's not the kind of wasp that'll go for your marmalade sandwiches. It's a crafty killer. Females are busy digging a series of holes in the compacted sand. Long, thin tunnels, up to 1.5 meters long. At the end of each tunnel is a nest chamber, where they'll lay their eggs. But first, this female must stock hers with food. There's only one item on her shopping list, and the nearby town has plenty on offer. Sandy's flower-filled gardens are full of honeybees. While the bee gathers nectar, the bee wolf makes her move. Slowly creeping in, she catches her victim unawares. It's risky work. The bee could kill her. But the bee wolf manages to sting first and immobilize her prey. Then she squeezes the bee, forcing it to regurgitate its nectar. Not only does this lighten her load, she also tops up her energy before carrying her prize back to the nest. After collecting up to 6 bees, she lays a single egg on their comatose bodies. Within a few days, it hatches into a larva and begins to feast. It'll stay underground for up to 10 months, devouring its larder, only emerging in June when the warm weather returns. Bee wolves are newcomers to Britain, responding to our warming climate. First recorded in the Isle of Wight in the 80s, they've now spread as far north as Yorkshire, colonizing towns and cities on their way. Our urban jungles have a climate all of their own. Cars and buildings generate warmth. Dark tarmac absorbs more of the sun's heat. And fewer trees means less shade. As a result, our cities can be 10 degrees warmer than the surrounding countryside. It's enough for an exotic visitor to settle down and make Britain its home. No one knows how ring-necked parakeets arrived in Britain. Some say Jimi Hendrix released a pair in Carnaby Street. Others that they absconded from a film set. But most likely, they're simply descended from escaped pets. Their survival here is a surprise because they're typically from the tropics. But the fact that our cities are relatively mild helps. As does our love of feeding garden birds, providing the parakeets with a year-round source of food. There are now over 30,000 ring-necked parakeets in British cities. And just 50 years after they first appeared, they've spread as far as Scotland. In winter, huge numbers come together at dusk, including 6,000 here at a cemetery in Lewisham. The reason for this gathering is not entirely clear. Perhaps it's for safety, or extra warmth, or even to meet mates. But whatever the reason, it certainly brings a touch of the exotic to a grey winter's night. Just a few miles to the east, another neighbourhood undergoes a nocturnal invasion. This suburb near Romford receives nightly visits from a raiding party, with one thing on their minds: it's 11 p.m. in early November, and most residents are getting ready for bed, leaving the streets to the local gang of fallow deer. They've come from the surrounding woodland, where food is in short supply. But there's plenty here. Amongst the roads and houses, the warmer temperature means vegetation continues to grow throughout the winter, including verge-side grasses, irresistible to the hungry deer. Lush plants are particularly welcome at this time of year. The fallow deer have just finished their mating season. Bucks have battled hard to win their harem, and many of the does are now pregnant. They're in need of a good feed. The raid is not without risk. But the rewards make it worthwhile. And it even provides suburban lawns with a trim. As the city awakes, the deer head back to the cover of nearby woodland. With bellies full and the grass cut, it's a win-win situation. "80% of the British population now lives in the urban environment. And it's easy for us to lose our connection with the natural world. So green spaces are more important than ever. Not only for wildlife, but also for us. In the heart of Glasgow, an old industrial site is being turned from wasteland into wildland. Hamilton Hill Clay Pits is fast becoming a natural gem. Over 10,000 people live within a 10-minute walk of the new reserve.
Oh, yellow.
A wild oasis for communities in need of somewhere to switch off and recharge. To learn. To play. And be delighted by wild encounters over a morning cup of tea. Roe deer are already moving in, using the canal to pass through the busy city and into a new wild home. Britain's towns and cities continue to grow and change. While some animals are feeling the squeeze, others are making our urban areas their own. If we provide a welcoming home, wild pioneers are quick to move in. Their presence can enhance our lives. Helping us to reconnect with a natural world that's full of surprise. So next time you're walking the streets, look up, look around. You never know what you might see.